Easy guys, Dom here from Cringy Dad Gaming. So in this video, going to be taking a look at the Arctic biome from the game Icarus and just discuss my overall feelings and experience playing this beta weekend where we got access to the Arctic environment. Now I have to say that this was extremely challenging, and compared to the conifer biome, which a lot of us have been playing over the last few weekends, the Arctic makes that feel like a complete breeze. This is another level of difficulty when it comes to survival, and going in blind and not having any experience or doing any research on the Arctic environment within this game means after playing it probably for about 2 hours, spending about 2 hours in the Arctic area, I'll definitely do things slightly different the next time I go in. But I'll kind of discuss that as we go through the video. But I have to say that the environment itself, although quite barren, is pretty beautiful in some areas and in certain respects. Just the way it looks, the feel of it, the sound design, just really does make it feel like you're in a cold Arctic environment. And the mission really was to hunt down a mammoth and get a mammoth tusk, and I think that's quite a cool little mission, but at the same time not very solo player friendly, at least for someone like me going in blind. Another run of this I'd do it slightly different, but I just think that with the limited inventory space you have and what you can actually carry, to be able to go into the Arctic environment you need quite a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of things that are missing within this area that you can't actually scavenge, you know, to get things like fiber and stuff like that. You're not going to find it. Now there's a few caves that I come across which I was mainly using for shelter from the cold, because when the storms come through, or if you decide to not sleep through the night by taking a bedroll with you, then the temperature drops ridiculously low and you're just going to freeze to death. So it's really important to take enough resources to be able to craft everything you need. So I did notice in a lot of these caves there was a lot of deep sections that you can't get to. You'd probably need to craft or take, you know, ladders and stuff like that to be able to get down. And there was a lot of materials that you could mine, lots of different ores and stuff like that, and they look quite rich in a lot of those materials, although I don't know if they're going to yield things like the fiber that you would need as well to be able to craft stuff. So, you know, not being able to get down there myself and explore deeper in those depths, I wasn't really sure what was going to be down there, but there could be a lot of really good stuff deep down in some of these caves that I was coming across. And obviously you've got to manage things like your oxygen, your thirst and your hunger, and pretty straightforward to find that stuff really, and you can pick a lot of that stuff back up after you find it. So like the campfire and your bedroll and stuff like that, you can kind of pick up and take it with you. But when you start running low on ammunition, for say in this instance I had a crossbow and a bow, it started getting a little bit difficult because the amount of wolves is ridiculous. The amount of wolves in this area. Great if you've got a group of players and you've all got rifles and shotguns. If you've got to that point in the game where you've been able to craft those more powerful weapons, then it's probably going to be a lot more fun and a lot easier to be able to kill some of the predators. I didn't even bother trying to engage with the polar bears because I knew that I was just going to get absolutely shredded if I was to come up against one of those. So a lot of my exploring was relatively stealthy. I was trying to avoid as many of the wolves and polar bears as I could, although I did need to kill a few wolves to be able to get meat to be able to sustain myself within the time that I was out there, but also to be able to find fur and leather and stuff like that for crafting while I was there. I decided to try and make a few little camps throughout the area, so when I go back through there'd be some things there for me to reuse, you know, leaving some bedrolls down, leaving some campfires down in some of these caves while I was heading north within this Arctic region. And to a certain extent I kind of wish I hadn't done that, because I got to a point later on within this region where I was running low on a lot of materials and I couldn't craft anything else, and I kind of kicked myself a little bit for not just picking the bedroll up and taking the campfire with me, although I did end up having one campfire which I was able to continue to use, but I'd already made probably a couple before that and left them, and I'd used materials that I would have been better off keeping in my inventory for later on. I got to a point where I had to spend the night in a cave not being able to sleep because I didn't realise that I'd ran out of fibre and I couldn't make the bedroll. I had enough of the other materials, but just not enough to be able to make the bedroll in the end, and I couldn't sleep through the night, which meant I had to literally sit next to a campfire while it was like -15 or something, next to the fire all night to just really stay warm and not die. The storms though look amazing when they come in. You see them rolling in on the horizon and they look pretty scary, if I'm honest. You definitely don't want to be going out in the open at night in some of these storms, because yeah, you're just going to die of exposure. Finding water wasn't really too hard. You just have to melt down ice in the campfire, so you just pick up the ice off the floor, melt it in the campfire using your water skin, and that was pretty straightforward stuff really. So, you know, finding water, finding food, that wasn't too difficult with the amount of, like I said, wolves that you've got. But you get set upon by a group of wolves, and sometimes I was seeing like packs of like 5, 6, 7 wolves all in one area, and trying to avoid them was relatively challenging, I have to say. Trying to pick off a stray wolf here and there was what I ended up doing to be able to just get what I needed from it without getting set upon by a large group. And because I'm wearing the fur, armor or clothing, whatever you want to call it, to stay warm, it doesn't actually give you much protection against, you know, animal attacks. And I'm guessing kind of leveling up a bit more, you know, leveling up the amount of health I've got and how much damage I take from animals and things like that, all things you can do using your talent points as you level up. So my character probably needs a little bit more leveling up to be able to make it a little bit easier, but I definitely think that a firearm would have made the challenge a lot easier for me. Trying to use a crossbow and a bow, just, yeah, it wasn't really working out. And there was one point where I'd gone down into this big crevasse in the ice, and I thought, if I go down into this crevasse, maybe the wolves can't go down into it, and I obviously wanted to test it, and that wasn't the case. The wolves jumped down and I'd kind of trapped myself into a corner pretty much because I couldn't get out the other side, it was blocked. And luckily enough I managed to kill the wolves, but I'd nearly died at that point and my health was extremely low. So there was a few dicey moments where I'd nearly died because of the amount of wolves and the limited spaces to be able to try and get some safety away from some of these predators. But I managed to avoid a lot of the predators and managed to make it far enough north to actually get to where the mammoth was. And at this point was where things really kind of went wrong for me, because I'd run out of crossbow bolts. I'd got a few arrows, but the arrows I was firing at the mammoth, some of them I was missing because I tried to go up onto this cliff to try and stay away from its attack, and I wasn't really hitting it, and when I was hitting it, it was doing very little damage. But then my bow broke and I didn't actually have the resources to be able to repair my bow. So at that point I was pretty much doomed, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go in with my spear, old school style, like they probably would have done back in the Stone Age, and died. It was a good experience overall, and I'm glad I survived long enough to make it to the mammoth, because trust me, it's a long way to get there with all the challenges in the way, such as the storms, the cold, trying to get, you know, enough oxygen, water and food, and avoid getting killed by big groups of predators, you know, like the wolf packs and things like that. So I was pretty happy to make it to the mammoth. I do think it would be a lot easier doing it with a group, so, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who have done it as a group and probably killed the mammoth. There's probably people that have done it solo, but I just think it's all about the planning and preparation of the adventure itself and making sure you've got the right materials with you and the right weaponry. Maybe I just, like I said, just didn't have the right stuff at the time to be able to take it on board, but it was still an overall enjoyable experience, and I'm really looking forward to playing more of the Arctic. It's a very hardcore feeling experience in my opinion. Maybe a little bit too hardcore in places, maybe not, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to gauge. It's going to be down to personal opinion, personal taste. It's quite subjective. Some people like a very hardcore experience in survival games. Some people want it a little bit more casual. So, you know, it'd be nice maybe if there was options to be able to choose the difficulty of maybe the drops. You know, sometimes when you drop into a prospect, maybe there could be an option where you could choose the difficulty level of how hard it's going to be, like, you know, how many of these predators are going to be in the area, how much damage they do to you, just things like that. Maybe being able to, you know, modify the game like some of the survival games do, like things like 7 Days to Die. It just means that people are able to tailor the experience to themselves a little bit more. Overall, I enjoyed the difficulty level of it, and it makes me kind of think and strategize a little bit more on what I'm going to do the next time I visit the Arctic. There you go guys, just a look at my overall experience playing the Arctic biome, some of the things that I come across, and like I said, I'm looking forward to playing more of the Icarus beta, and obviously really looking forward to it when it finally comes into early access. So, if you'd like to see more content on the channel for this game in the future, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Watch this space for more Icarus, and I'll catch you guys on another video. Thanks for watching.